everyone, I'm Laura Gale Locke. The city would like to be part of a study that would explore the possibility of bringing passenger rail service back to Wichita. I have two council members who've been very involved in this process and a staff member here with us today. We have Councilmember Pete Meitzner, Councilmember James Clendenin, and Scott Knable, our Downtown Revitalization Manager. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, first just tell me a little bit about the study.
Well, we caught word that passenger rail service, the ridership was increasing around the nation, and that between Amtrak and the federal government there was a movement to increase routes and support that. So a few of us got together and said, well, let's make sure that should Wichita be involved in this discussion or not. And we quickly found out that there was a movement from our neighbors to the south, meaning Texas primarily and Oklahoma, to connect the southern routes with the northern routes, so to speak. And we become right in the way to do that. And so we are, in fact, in the discussion is what we found. So that was the start of what we've been doing the last few months.
Mm-hmm. What all would the study cover?
The study that we could potentially be a part of would join ourselves with Texas and Oklahoma. There's an environmental impact study that is required, and then there's also like a service development plan that kind of does the economic impact. And what's key is that you have to have these studies on file. And multi-state studies combined are better than single-state studies. But once you're on file, that is like almost serves as an application fee for the next 10 years to where if there's ever any break in funding from federal grants and or if our state or ourselves wanted to take on the cost of supplying the services, you cannot do that without having this study completed and on file.
Any idea like how long it might take to complete the study?
As quickly as a year to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hoping.
They're in the middle of the study right now with Texas and Oklahoma. It's probably worth showing we have the gap. Right now, Texas wants to come north. They can only go through Louisiana to St. Louis or clear over to Los Angeles. So there is as we've teased, there's a Mason-Dixon line of a gap, and we'll show you that. And then on top of that, we discovered that National Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood has issued another map with dotted lines that shows the extension of the Oklahoma City route either north through us or as an alternative over to Tulsa, up through Joplin, and into Kansas City. So the dialogue is going on right now. It's been going on, and we've been catching up as fast as we can, and we think we're doing a pretty good job of getting our community in the discussion.
I think it's interesting to note that the Federal Railroad Administration has sectioned the United States off into 5 separate regions. And there's the Midwest and the Southern region are the 2 regions that Wichita is just sandwiched very closely in between. And we, and the connection between Oklahoma and Newton tends to be the bridge that would bridge the gap between the regions and would create a corridor from Chicago all the way down to Dallas, Fort Worth and beyond. And it really makes it possible for a huge amount of our population to ride and have access to alternate forms of transportation if they wish. So we are very important. We are very important in that discussion.
I might just add one thing, Laura Gale, is that Amtrak has their news releases, and in their April news release, the regions that James is referring to, the largest percentage increase of passenger ridership was the segment between Oklahoma City and Fort Worth, and it was at nearly 11%, and it was the largest increase of all of the segments in the central region. So it's going.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you guys could talk a little bit more about the advantages of having passenger rail service in Wichita.
Well, there's a number of reasons. I mean, obviously there's fuel and wear and tear on roads and things like that. But we find that the landscape has changed recently, and we've got an aging population. that doesn't want to battle some of the efforts that include highways and air travel. There's the college kids. A lot of them delaying the purchase of cars. Sometimes their insurance payment is more than their car payment. And if they're in college, they just have a sense of, there's a large increase in ridership from college students. And in the Midwest, we're really seeing that from Amtrak's information they've sent us. And the fact that, well, we have today's technology has changed so rapidly that we find that business people are also having productive hours, billable hours, by virtue of their iPads and connectivity through services, Wi-Fi services that trains allow you to concentrate for a 2-hour billable time frame. So there's a lot of things that have come together, and Wichita is the largest city. We're going to have a great new airport. We're going to have Southwest Airlines coming. When Amtrak signs a contract, it's a 20-year commitment. So regardless of the highs and lows of an economy over the 20 years, we would further embed ourselves as not only the largest city in Kansas, but kind of a transportation hub that people will come to fly and take the train. Just like you go to Newton right now as a destination. Some people drive to Tulsa and Kansas City to take Southwest Airlines. People will come to Wichita to use our airport and use our train.
And I think we've heard that. This isn't just opinion. We've heard that from a lot of the towns in the area. Sedgwick County Association of Cities has fully endorsed this idea, and also a lot of the cities in northern Oklahoma. I think it's important to realize that this could give Wichita a competitive edge over cities around the region. Not only are businesses a competitive edge, but also universities. Pete mentioned it. You know, when I went to this rail conference in Kalamazoo, we had 2 Missouri Valley Conference schools there that market rail travel as a less expensive way for their students to get around, and they actively tell students, you can come here less expensive. We had a Big Ten school there in Illinois University that is actively pursuing rail. So, you know, between the Big 12, the Missouri Valley schools, and there in between, there's a lot of opportunity to be competitive.
Even including the smaller colleges in our state.
Absolutely.
Junior colleges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure parents and students would both love to not have car payments and car insurance, and less worry for parents when their kids are not on the road and they're on the train instead.
Absolutely.
Scott, maybe you could talk a little bit about where the train station might be and the impact.
Sure. Absolutely. In Project Downtown, the master plan for downtown Wichita, this issue and this discussion was brought to the table by the Northern Flyer Alliance, who's actively involved in pursuing this work. And the plan identifies using Union Station as a train station, amazingly, which is exactly what it was built as. And train stations today are not as involved as they were at the time Union Station was built. Rail travel at that time was, much more utilized. There was no commercial air travel to speak of at the time that was built. So the redevelopment of the Union Station area with new uses, offices, restaurants, retail, those sorts of things that are identified in the downtown plan could still occur, and you could still use a small portion of that building as a train station, and perhaps even have the ability to connect to other modes of transportation, buses, car rental, taxi cabs, so that when people come to town, they can, get about to other areas in addition to just downtown, which has a lot to offer. There's, hundreds of hotel rooms within walking distance of Union Station, dozens of restaurants, dozens of retail establishments, right within walking distance as well.
And we were in Kansas City at the rail conference in the first part of April, and we got to present why Wichita should be included in the discussion. And the beautiful, so those of you that have seen the Kansas City Union Station, it's a great building just like ours, but they've even got retail shops and things going on inside that what I understand pays pays for the building, and they still use it for passenger rail, but it has a lot of things going on inside. If you ever get a chance to walk through it, it's a pretty impressive building in operation.
I would just add and go to a little bit larger scale. I was just at Union Station in Chicago, and I couldn't believe it was as busy as O'Hare was. I mean, it was bustling, and you could barely get through. There were so many people engaged in using rail travel. So there's a lot of potential here.
And it is cheaper, correct?
Well, Pete has a good story, I think.
Well, it depends. You know, you buy your air tickets well in advance. You can kind of, everybody knows that, and you can buy and you plan for your car trips. But the rail seems to be one where it's kind of set prices that we were presenting, and one of the individuals in the local chamber here was saying that he just first comment was, I just flew one of my salespeople to Dallas for a meeting, and it was $750 round trip, and it was something that the rail service would be much less than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're talking, initial numbers are about $50 for every 200 miles that you travel. So going down to Dallas, you could see it being around $200, round trip
And then
to Dallas
you
and
could
back.
save up all that money to go on even more exciting trips from the airport.
But the pricing is really more pricing and time of day services and how many routes and all those things are details that Amtrak and the study kind of figures out. Our effort is not to try to quote a price or to quote how many routes and what time of day. We just think that per the maps and the gaps that you've seen, that we don't want to be left out of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So is our Union Station, is that close to being usable, ready to go, or would work have to be done there?
Depending upon how it was occupied, more or less work would need to be done. I mean, the building is in good condition. It was occupied by Cox Communications for a number of years, and it is configured for an office, and depending upon the user, you could move in with minimal renovations. I think probably the ideal use of the building would involve pretty significant renovations of the interior to configure it, less for an office and more for a retail type of environment with restaurants and those sorts of things. The other thing that there really is a good potential for at that site is that it is the largest contiguous site in downtown under single ownership. That's not already, that's available, basically. And there's significant opportunities to do new construction on that site in some of the surface parking areas where you could do, and we've seen several plans from people who have explored it to do hotels or residential projects on the site as well.
And who owns it currently?
It's owned by Cox Communications.
Okay.
And they've been actively marketing the property for several years. And there's been several proposals and even contracts on the property by potential purchasers, but none of them have worked out yet.
So there is some urgency then to get the study going so we would be able to maybe use this facility.
Right.
It's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. So what are the next steps to hopefully get the study done?
Well, it really falls in the hands, because although Wichita, we're the largest city, we're kind of taking a leading role, but we cannot make the commitment for the state to do this. And it ultimately falls in to the KDOT, the Kansas Department of Transportation, with the new Secretary Mike King. We've had some visits with him, and under the governor's leadership as well. And so out of respect, they're the ones that ultimately can make the decision, and combined with all of our citizenry. And their also challenge is probably, we're very respectful of the fact that Amtrak is also on that Southwest Chief, that existing rail that's going from Newton, clear into Colorado, New Mexico. There's some track costs and upgrade things that is also another issue that's going on in related to passenger rail service. And so we're cognizant of that and respectful for that, and respectful for what we think the governor and Department of Transportation wants to do for the whole state in general. So it's not really our decision, but we're trying to provide and gather as much information, being that Wichita, we feel, wants to be a part of it.
So what type of information have you gathered and presented to them?
Oh my.
Tons?
A lot. A lot.
You have about 8 hours to go over it.
Yeah, the Northern Flyer Alliance has helped provide some information. We've a lot of discussions with a lot of groups, just a lot of meaningful discussion too. It probably warrants that we're not approaching this as we've teased. We're not necessarily trained romance people, and there is a great group of citizenry that just love the romance of the trains, and that is by itself is not enough for us to take the next step. And in the same breath, there's others that say public monies and are absolutely not, no matter if it's a dollar. Well, we're not approaching it from an ideology perspective either. So we're trying to look at this as a business case, an economic development case, document those facts that are real facts that we can allow us all to make decisions, say, is this really viable enough for us to say, yeah, let's go, or too much information that says, it's cost prohibitive, we don't want to do this. It doesn't have enough impact. So
it's important for us to be very objective and have very factual, accurate data to be able to move forward with this. And we've gained a ton of that. But we have to be responsible in doing this as well, and I think that's the approach that Pete started off with, and I've coupled with him to help with a little bit of that. But it's important to be responsible and at least take a good look at this and find out if it's the right thing.
With the information you've gathered and what you've learned, what really stands out the most to you?
The fact that we can get our 10-year application on file in a relatively very quick, that we can piggyback on in a very active state, being Texas, that's already active. We can piggyback kind of at the last minute and be included as part of the study. Those of you that are familiar with 47th Street South, for instance, the plans were done, all the design was ready, but we couldn't afford to do it. But on a national level, when funds broke for who has a project, we were able to raise our hand and say, we've got that one. So it came to the head, and we got that accomplished. A very needed project down there, but we were able to accelerate because we had all the preliminary work done. So we don't know the final number is, but if we're in the application process and if there's some federal grant money or not, or matching funds or the state initiative, we will then be able to raise our hand and say, yeah, we have a project ready to go.
How much do they think the study might cost?
We're still getting that defined number. I would rather not quote that right now. It's not a huge number that we understand, but we're trying to get that final number as well.
It's just important, I think, for people to understand. It's not that the state just doesn't want to, let's say, go ahead with the study, but that there is a cost involved and that you guys are working to help the state be able to finance it. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
The state would have, and there's parts of the study we're finding out that we can perform that would lessen that cost. For instance, so we can do some of the study ourselves that they would say, okay, well, if you guys do that, then we don't need to. And
I think it's safe. I think it's safe to say that it would be a fraction of the cost, the original estimates that were provided us. So I think it would be at least safe to say that.
Because you're piggybacking onto the other study?
Right.
Okay, so that would allow for the cost savings?
Yes.
So I know it's very hard when we don't even know if we'll be able to do this study for sure or not, but what would the timeline possibly be for how soon we could see passenger rail service here?
Well, on the short side, there was in Portland, Maine, again referring to the national map of Amtrak, that they probably did the quickest. They jumped into it. There was a Northeast Corridor study going on, and the state of Maine and the city of Portland said, we want to jump in at the last minute, and they had some very active and some willing help within the state and even some private business They got into the study at the last minute and actually got it up and running within 2 years to connect their deal to Boston. And so it connected the state of Maine to the Boston route. And that's awful fast, but we had to confirm that, and you'd have to have a lot of pieces falling in place to do that. But that gap there, I mean, it's a pretty real gap that Texas wants to close, and so on the short side it'd be 2 years. Other than that, it'd be after that, somewhere between 2 and 10.
There's been some
wiggle room
estimates that have been done that you know, if things follow the normal course and are not fast tracked, we're probably talking, you know, 6 or 7 years out.
So you can have the new terminal up and running and add in the passenger rail, and it would be a bustling hub.
Well, to complement Scott's explanation as well, you know, we've looked at downtown and we've had so much positive going on in the whole city with the airport and other projects that on the master plan. And one that was not really considered was that piece of a puzzle right in the middle, which would be, you know, not only getting Union Station back up as a good building, but actually have a train stop. And so, as others, including Jeff Fleur and some of the chamber, says, you know, it's kind of a middle piece of a puzzle. We're still doing things regardless if we have passenger rail or not. We are still going in very positive directions, and we will continue to do so. And this would just be could be a real shining star if it happened.
Very nice compliment. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think he's right. I think that in terms of the downtown, things are very active, and certainly the Union Station development is you know, a key component of that. And certainly, I don't think we'll consider our project downtown a success until that project is completed. I think that's certainly one of the crown jewels of the downtown plan, and that project would be made that much better if we had that additional transportation service option for this region operating out of it.
Is there anything that people can do to show their support or help make this study a reality?
Well, I get a lot of conversation, and James gets emails, and there's a lot of people that really want to support this. And we have kind of said, well, we appreciate it, and probably the South Central Kansas delegation of our state legislators and state senators, but there's an election year, you know, that everybody's up, you know, that's turmoil of the redistricting, all that, but people could probably let their local legislators know that if they have an interest, that if we take a look at it to investigate further. We haven't really gone with the public, you know, petitions or anything like that. We have stayed with local groups like the local association of cities, the county cities, and we've talked to REAP and the chamber and downtown development and a lot of areas. And we've talked to our federal representation, Congressman Mike Pompeo and Senator Jerry Moran, and so they're aware. And obviously we've had our meetings with Mike King and with Governor Brownback's office. So we're doing that part. And so if citizens feel compelled to be supportive in a very respectful way, knowing that all the things we've just discussed, they're more than willing to contact their local representation. I don't think that hurts at all.
No, they need to. They need to, if they have any inkling at all that this is something they would utilize or something that would make their quality of life better, they need to contact their local representative and let them know that this is important to them.
Is there anything else you want people to walk away from the show knowing?
I think the citizens need to know that when there's always this economic development word that's used, and we've kind of taken the approach, at least myself and some of us in the council, that we just don't want opportunities to get away from us. We had the very unfortunate event of a few years ago losing the bowling tournament. You know, we've had the recent really bad news about Boeing. And so there's things that kind of happen anyway, and we just think it would be irresponsible if we don't make sure that we're looking at every opportunity that has a nice impact on our community. And that's what I think the citizens should know, that we're not sitting idle. We're not letting stuff come to us. We are out working and selling as best we can to promote our city.
And I think to piggyback off that we're working and we're investigating this from a practical point of view too. You know, I think it was very important that Pete's attitude on this, and mine as well, is that we're taking a business approach look at this. We're not taking an emotional kind of train romance look at it, and we're out there making sure that this is the right thing and not just, you know, going off half-cocked on it.
Well, I'm sure people are very appreciative of all of your hard work, and we'll all be excited to see what happens. We'll have to bring it in to let us have you guys tell us when you get the study done.
You bet.
All right.
All right, thank you, and
Choo-choo
thank
for
you
now.
for watching.
That's right.
Choo-choo for now. Thank you. I can't even close out the show. Thank you for watching this edition of Local Loop.